Have you guys heard of the 15-minute city? This move to urbanize and make all your necessities within a 15-minute walk of your house in urban locations, and then 20-minute location if you're in the suburbs. This is to cut down on carbon emissions, to make it more pedestrian friendly city, yada, yada, yada. And on a surface level, that sounds great. Urban planning and these food deserts where people don't have a grocery store within 30 minutes of their house happens all over the world in the United States. Now, there is a move to push these 15-minute cities from people that you otherwise wouldn't trust. Right? So it's a benign movement where you're like, "Oh, okay, they want these 15-minute cities." Then you look at who's doing it and you go, "Wait a second. What is your motivation here?" Okay. So if you Google 15-minute cities, all you'll see is like, why are people so skeptical? How it became a meme, how it became a right wing conspiracy theory. Fine. What I tell people, and it's the same thing that goes for central bank digital currencies that I talked about yesterday or a couple days ago. The tech itself is benign. It's what it is. It's who controls it. and and the people who are like, hey, why do you think that it will turn into X, Y, and Z, right? Maybe like you're not allowed to leave this 15-minute zone that you are zoned to, except for once a week, what have you. Why do we think that it'll turn into that? My answer is, why do you think it won't? Okay. So, unless there are breaks, right, on the government, the natural inclination is to gain and take more power and take more control. This is just how government works. This is the story of history. Okay. So these 15-minute cities in and of themselves aren't bad, but then people look at who's pushing them, like a group from Davos, and you go, huh, I wonder why they're doing this. And then you look at the green energy movement and you're like, huh, hey, I'm not against, um, trying to get renewable energies. Who is? But if you're like, hey, well, in order to do that, we're going to have to track your whereabouts. We're going to have to give you a carbon credit score, things like this. Um, Big difference. See what I'm saying? So when we're arguing with people or discussing these ideas, it's typically not the idea itself that we have an issue with. It is the people implementing it and where the power lies. Same thing with the central bank digital currency. Same thing with these 15-minute cities. I think that's great, honestly, to have a walkable city where you can buy your groceries, go to school and be a pedestrian. This urban sprawl isn't necessarily a good thing. But what is their motivation? It's power and control, typically. Um, and if it's coming from certain organizations, people have a little shred of doubt, which is good. Okay. We're not the first group of people to try to implement these communes, these groups, these cities. And I'll link this whole video in the description below. If you're not familiar, obviously we've heard of Mao's Great Leap Forward. But um, he had these communes, the People's Commune, where people lived together and shared tools, and it was utopia, right? So let's take a listen.
Praising the merits of the first experimental People's Commune set up in Henan province. He declared with enthusiasm, "The People's Commune will be the bridge that will carry China towards the socialist paradise." The saying was taken up in all provinces, and in just one summer, thousands of communes were formed. They consisted of up to 2,000 families. There were even plans for enormous communes, combining up to 10 or 20,000 households, which would be headed by cadres who were totally dedicated to Mao.
Now, Are these 15-minute cities directly related to these communes? Not necessarily. Like, again, as I've said before, just because you start with A doesn't mean you get to Z, like total totalitarianism and government control. But if you don't put the brakes on, folks, if you don't say, here's my line in the sand, then government continues to push. And if you don't believe that, look at history. If you think somehow people in the West are uniquely moral, you're wrong. Um, but let's keep listening.
The working day started at dawn and finished after dark, accompanied by music to the glory of the Great Leap Forward. As the basic unit of the future society, the commune experimented with a completely new way of life. Here, everything was designed to immerse the individual in a collective life geared towards production.
Okay, so what if we didn't? The reason for this collective life wasn't to be geared towards production for our nation. It was just to conserve resources for climate change. So we don't all need a shovel. We don't all need a house. We can share. Does it make it better? Does it make it go better? No. All these movements fundamentally misunderstand the nature of man. They deny it. They deny the nature of man, and they think, hey, we can live in this utopia. And eventually that utopia turns into a nightmare, and you have to use force to enforce the fun utopia that you've decided to commit people to.
All private property was abolished. Houses, animals, land, and production tools became collective property. Nurseries and free, compulsory schools liberated women from their maternal duties so they could work in the fields.
Look how happy she is.
At that time, I was very young. I was a member of the Youth League and in charge of propaganda, so that shows that I believed in communism. I thought communism was fantastic. From when we were tiny, we were taught that the communist paradise would soon come, and we only had to endure a little suffering and make a few sacrifices to reach it. That was how I saw things.
The family unit disappeared, and children were made to live by the new rules of collective life. The individual was nothing more than a cog in a big machine.
All right, you get the idea. I'll link this whole video. Let's see what channel is this? Timeline History. Great channel if you want to learn more. I'll link that whole video in the description below. What's my point? Uh, there's no natural destination other than totalitarianism for government. Why do we need the Constitution? To control government. Why did they know that we needed to control government? Because government and human beings have been the same all throughout history. And I see a movement today to redefine words. Okay, so if you do every single thing the same as far as communism goes or socialism, but you don't call it socialism, you call it democratic socialism. We take your job with a smile on your face. Our face, we take your house. It's like all you're doing is redefining words. But it has the same outcome because why? Because it fundamentally denies the nature of man, right? And the corruptibility of politicians who have ultimate power and control to destroy people's lives. And look no further than history, folks. It's you don't have to look that far back. USSR, Mao's China, Communist Germany, Vietnam, name it. Okay, it's all the same. And I know probably most of you watching this agree with me, but you feel frustrated about the ignorance of certain people out there who don't see what's going on. And like I said, 15-minute cities in and of itself is benign. In and of itself, central bank digital currency is just a thing, right? It's a utility. But when we talk about who controls it and where the power lies, that's where I'd focus your attention. All right, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Watch this whole video or that whole Mao China video. It's really good. I'll link it in the description. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.